my name is Taryn and I'll be your instructor for this course on idioms. So an idiom is a phrase or an expression that has a meaning different from the literal interpretation of the words. So an example would be when someone says it's raining cats and dogs. They don't actually mean that pets are falling from the sky, of course not. What they mean is it's raining very heavily. You see, idioms add color and personality to our language, which makes conversations more engaging and natural. So why learn business idioms? Well, imagine you're in a business meeting. Everyone is silent, unsure of how to start. Or maybe your project is delayed and you know the exact reason why. What do you say? Well, in English, we often use idioms to sound more natural and persuasive and engaging. Today, let's go through some powerful business idioms that can help you communicate better at work. I think the issue with our project is the lack of communication. You really hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly what's causing our delays. Everyone seems so quiet at this team meeting, and we've been talking about this new project for weeks without any action. Let me break the ice and get the ball rolling by suggesting we start with a brainstorming session. You look tired today. Rough night? Yeah, I was burning the midnight oil trying to finish the presentation. We've been at it for 10 hours straight. I think it's time to call it a day. Okay, so let's break it down. We want to really understand these idioms. Hit the nail on the head. Let's replay the conversation. I think the issue with our project is the lack of communication. You really hit the nail on the head there. That's exactly what's causing our delays. So what does hit the nail on the head mean here? Let's talk about its origin. This idiom actually comes from carpentry. When a carpenter is working with a hammer, if they hit the nail exactly on its head, everything goes smoothly and the nail goes straight in. But if they miss, it can go wrong. It can end up crooked. So hitting the nail on the head is about being spot on with your action. Let's talk about it in usage of conversation. So in this conversation, when Emma says, "You really hit the nail on the head," she's telling Sarah that she has identified the exact problem. It's a way of saying, "You're absolutely right." Just like the carpenter's hammer hitting the nail perfectly, Sarah's observation is accurate. So let's put this into a situation, idioms, and working in business. When you use this idiom, you're giving someone a strong compliment about their insight or analysis. It shows that you value their perspective and that you're acknowledging their ability to identify key issues accurately. Here's an example of another way that you could use it. "You've really hit the nail on the head with this strategy. This is exactly what we need to move forward." That feedback is spot on. You've hit the nail on the head about what we should change in that report. So break the ice or get the ball rolling. Let's go back to the conversation to review. Everyone seems so quiet at this team meeting, and we've been talking about this new project for weeks without any action. Let me break the ice and get the ball rolling by suggesting we start with a brainstorming session. So what does break the ice mean here? Let's talk about its origin. This idiom comes from ships in polar regions. In the past, when ships would get stuck in frozen waters, they literally had to break the ice around them to move forward. Similarly, in social situations, we need to overcome initial awkwardness or tension in order to make progress. So in this particular conversation, Emma uses break the ice to suggest starting a conversation in a comfortable way. She also pairs it with get the ball rolling, which means to start an activity or process to show she wants to both ease the tension and begin making progress. So a situation would be when you use this idiom, break the ice, that means you're taking the first step to start a conversation or make people feel more comfortable in a social situation. And it's particularly useful when there's initial awkwardness or when people are hesitant to speak up. Here's another example for you. I'll break the ice by sharing a brief introduction about our team's recent achievements. And what does get the ball rolling mean here? Well, again, let's talk about where it came from, where it originated. This idiom comes from games or sports where a ball needs to start moving to begin play. Once the ball starts rolling, the game is in motion. And similarly in business, it refers to starting a process or an activity that will then continue on its own momentum. So in conversation, when Emma says she wants to get the ball rolling, she's expressing her desire to start the project moving forward with concrete actions rather than just talking about it. So when you use the idiom, get the ball rolling, you're indicating you want to initiate action or start a process. It's particularly useful when you want to move from planning to implementation or when you need to overcome initial inertia in a project. Here's another example for you. Let's get the ball rolling on this marketing campaign by setting up our first business strategy meeting. Next is burning the midnight oil and call it a day. So now let's look at the final part of their conversation. You look tired today. Rough night? Yeah, I was burning the midnight oil trying to finish the presentation. We've been at it for 10 hours straight. I think it's time to call it a day. So what does burning the midnight oil mean here? Its origin? This idiom dates back to before electricity, when people would burn oil lamps late into the night to continue working. The phrase has survived into modern times to describe working late hours. So when Emma mentions she was burning the midnight oil, she's basically expressing that she worked very late in order to complete her presentation. This idiom often implies dedication and hard work, although it can also suggest a very demanding workload. So let's give a situation when you might use burning the midnight oil. Well, it means that you're working late into the night, typically to complete important tasks or meet certain deadlines. It shows dedication, but it should be used sparingly as it can impact work-life balance. It's also often used to describe intense periods of work before major presentations or project deadlines. Let's give you an example to work with. The team has been burning the midnight oil to prepare for tomorrow's client presentation. And next, what does call it a day mean here? Let's talk about its origination. This phrase emerged from the traditional workday schedule where people would finish their work when daylight ended. And today it has evolved to mean ending any activity, regardless of the time. So in the conversation, when Emma says it, she uses call it a day to suggest stopping work after a very long period of putting in effort. It's a polite way to indicate that enough work has been done for now. Let's end it for today. A situation where you could use call it a day, well, it means that you're deciding to stop work or an activity for the day. It's often commonly used when you've accomplished enough or when you're too tired to continue productively. This particular idiom suggests a deliberate decision to end work rather than pushing beyond your reasonable limits or overworking. So our example could be, we've made great progress on the project proposal, but it's getting late. Let's call it a day. We can continue tomorrow with a fresh start. Hello and welcome to our next lecture on idioms. So why should we learn emotional idioms? Imagine you're having a conversation with someone about your feelings. Sometimes regular words just aren't enough to express how you really feel. That's where emotional idioms come in handy big time. These colorful expressions help us to communicate our feelings more effectively and engagingly. So today, let's explore some common emotional idioms that will make your conversations sound and feel more natural and expressive. I can't believe I failed that exam. I keep thinking about what I could have done differently. Don't cry over spilled milk. What's done is done. Let's focus on the next one. You're right. I think I need to blow off some steam at the gym first. That's a good idea. By the way, thanks for helping me study last week. You really have a heart of gold. Thanks. And guess what? I just got accepted into that summer program I applied for. No wonder you're walking on air. Though I noticed Jenny's giving you the cold shoulder since you got the spot she wanted. All right, so let's break it down. How we can understand these idioms. Don't cry over spilled milk. Let's replay the conversation. I can't believe I failed that exam. I keep thinking about what I could have done differently. Don't cry over spilled milk. What's done is done. Let's focus on the next one. So what does don't cry over spilled milk mean here? Let's talk about its origin. Imagine knocking over a glass of milk. You can't put it back into the glass, right? It's already spilled. Instead of getting upset about it, you move on. That's the idea behind this idiom. It means there's no use in being upset about something that has already happened and cannot be changed. So how would we use this in a conversation? When Michelle tells Lisa, don't cry over spilled milk, she's reminding her that she can't change the past, so it's better to focus on what's next. Let's put this into a situation. You use this idiom when you want to tell someone to not waste time worrying about something that has already happened. So here's an example. I missed my flight, but there's no point in crying over spilled milk. I'll just catch the next one. She was upset about losing the game, but I told her not to cry over spilled milk. There's always another chance. Let's go into blow off some steam. Let's go back to the conversation. You're right. I think I need to blow off some steam at the gym first. So what does blow off some steam mean here? Well, this idiom comes from steam engines. When they build up too much pressure, they need to release steam in order to avoid exploding. People are similar. They need to release built-up emotions in order to feel better. So let's talk about this usage in the conversation. When Lisa says she needs to blow off some steam, she means she wants to relieve stress by doing something physical, like going to the gym. So you use this idiom when someone needs to release frustration, anger, or stress. Here's a couple examples. After a long day at work, I go for a run to blow off some steam. Or, he was so frustrated after the argument that he went outside to blow off some steam. Next is heart of gold. Let's take a look at the next part. That's a good idea. By the way, thanks for helping me study last week. You really have a heart of gold. So what does heart of gold mean here? Well, gold is valuable and precious. So if someone has a heart of gold, it means they're kind, generous, and really caring. When Michelle tells Lisa she has a heart of gold, she means she's a genuinely kind and helpful person for helping her study. So a situation where we would use this idiom would be when describing someone who is very selfless, caring, and always willing to help others. An example would be, she volunteers at the shelter every weekend. She truly has a heart of gold. Or, even though he's always busy, he always finds time to help others. He has a heart of gold. Now let's look at the next part with walking on air. Thanks. And guess what? I just got accepted into that summer program I applied for. No wonder you're walking on air. So what does walking on air mean here? So imagine being so happy that you feel as light as air, as if you're floating or walking above the ground. That's where this idiom comes from. It describes extreme happiness. So when Michelle says, no wonder you're walking on air, she means that Lisa is so happy and excited about her acceptance that she feels like she's floating. You use this idiom when someone is extremely happy about something. For example, she was walking on air after getting engaged. Or, I felt like I was walking on air when I won the award. Up next, we have cold shoulder. Now let's look at the final part of the conversation. Though I noticed Jenny's giving you the cold shoulder since you got the spot she wanted. So what does cold shoulder mean here? Well, in medieval times, guests who were no longer welcome were served cold meat instead of a warm meal. This was a sign that it was time for them to leave. Over time, cold shoulder came to mean ignoring or being unfriendly to someone. So when Michelle says Jenny's giving you the cold shoulder, she means that Jenny is ignoring Lisa or treating her coldly because she's upset. You use this idiom when someone is deliberately ignoring or being unfriendly to another person. So an example would be, after our argument, she gave me the cold shoulder for a whole week. Or, I don't know why he's giving me the cold shoulder. I thought we were friends. And that concludes our lesson on idioms related to emotions and reactions. Thanks for joining us. Hello and welcome to our next lecture on idioms. What are problem-solving idioms? When faced with challenges and problems, English speakers often use colorful expressions to describe their situations and solutions. These idioms help us communicate about difficulties and decision-making in a more engaging way. Today, let's explore some common problem-solving idioms that will help you express yourself more naturally in challenging situations. We've hit a snag with the new project timeline. This project is turning out to be a tough nut to crack. Let's cut to the chase. What's our next step? We should focus on the current phase. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it regarding the later stages. All right, the ball is in your court now. Let me know what support you need. Okay, so let's break it down. Hit a snag. Let's replay the conversation. We've hit a snag with the new project timeline. So what does hit a snag mean here? Well, a snag is a small problem or obstacle, like a branch in a river that slows down a boat. If you hit a snag, you've encountered a difficulty or a setback that prevents smooth progress. So in conversation, when Tina says we've hit a snag with the new project timeline, she means that they have encountered an unexpected issue that is delaying their work. So you would use this idiom when talking about unexpected problems that slow down a project or a process. So for example, you might say, we were making good progress on the construction, but we hit a snag with the permits. Or, I was almost finished with my application, but I hit a snag when I realized I was missing a document. Next is tough nut to crack. Let's go back to the conversation. This project is turning out to be a tough nut to crack. So what does tough nut to crack mean here? Think about a nut with a hard shell. If it's tough to crack open, it means it's difficult to deal with or solve, just like a challenging problem. So when Sarah says this project is turning out to be a tough nut to crack, what she means is that it is much more difficult than she expected. So you would use this idiom when something is very challenging, tricky, tedious, or hard to solve. An example could be, this math problem is a tough nut to crack. I've been stuck on it for hours. Or, convincing the client to agree to our terms is a tough nut to crack. Up next, we have cut to the chase. Now let's look at this next part. Let's cut to the chase. What's our next step? So what does cut to the chase mean here? This idiom comes from early Hollywood movies. Instead of wasting time on unnecessary scenes, filmmakers would cut to the chase, jumping straight to the action. So when Tina says, let's cut to the chase, she means she wants to get straight to the important point without wasting any time. So you would use this idiom when you want to skip unnecessary details and go straight to the main point. An example could be, we don't have much time, so let's cut to the chase. What's the budget for the project? Or perhaps, I appreciate your background story, but let's cut to the chase. How can we solve this issue? Next is cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's go back to the conversation. We should focus on the current phase. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it regarding the later stages. So what does cross that bridge when we come to it mean here? Imagine you're on a journey and there's a bridge up ahead. Instead of worrying about it now, you decide to deal with it when you actually reach it. That's exactly what this idiom means. So when Sarah says, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, she basically means they shouldn't worry about future problems right now. They'll deal with them later. So you would use this idiom when you want to avoid stressing about future problems until they actually happen in the present moment. An example could be, I don't know what I'll do if I don't get the job, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Or, there's a chance the weather might change, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Next is, the ball is in your court. Now let's look at the final part. All right, the ball is in your court now. Let me know what support you need. So what does the ball is in your court mean here? This phrase comes from tennis or basketball. When the ball is in your court, it's your turn to take action. So when Tina says, the ball is in your court now, she means Sarah is now responsible for making the next decision. You would use this idiom when you want to say that it's someone else's turn to take action or make a decision. So an example that we could use in this case would be, I've sent you all the information you need. The ball is in your court now. Or we've done everything we can to support the deal. The ball is in their court. And that concludes our lesson on idioms related to problem solving and challenges. Great job. Hello and welcome to our next lecture on social idioms. Imagine you're at a party or meeting new people. You want to describe how close you are with a friend, or maybe you need to tell someone about an unexpected surprise. What do you say? Well, in English, we often use idioms to sound more natural and engaging. So today, let's go through some common social idioms that can help you communicate better in social situations. Have you met my new roommate? We're two peas in a pod. Really? Tell me more. Well, don't spill the beans to anyone else, but we're planning a surprise party. That sounds fun. I'm sure you'll have a blast. Yeah, we hope so. The idea came out of the blue last week. Wow, that really caught me off guard. I didn't know you were such a party planner. Two peas in a pod. Let's talk about it. First, let's replay the conversation. Have you met my new roommate? We're two peas in a pod. Really? So what does two peas in a pod really mean? Well, imagine opening a pea pod and seeing two peas inside perfectly similar and close together. This idiom comes from that visual when two people are very similar in personality, interests, or habits. They're like two peas in a pod. So when Lisa says, we're two peas in a pod, she means that she and her new roommate are very close and have a lot in common. So a situation for when you're using this idiom, you're describing a close friend or a relationship where two people are very alike. An example would be, my best friend and I are two peas in a pod. We love the same movies, music, and hobbies. Or John and his brother are two peas in a pod. They even dress alike. Next is spill the beans. Let's go back to that conversation. Really? Tell me more. Well, don't spill the beans to anyone else, but we're planning a surprise party. So what does spill the beans mean here anyway? So this idiom actually comes from an ancient voting system where people used to use beans to cast votes in secret. If someone accidentally spilled the beans, the secret was revealed. So in this particular conversation, Lisa tells Martha not to spill the beans, meaning she doesn't want her to reveal the secret about the surprise party. So when you use spill the beans, you're talking about revealing a secret, usually by accident, like giving something away. Example, I accidentally spilled the beans about the office promotion before it was officially announced. Or don't spill the beans about the surprise gift. I want it to be a total shock. Next is out of the blue. Let's look at the next part. It sounds fun. I'm sure you'll have a blast. Yeah, we hope so. The idea came out of the blue last week. So what does out of the blue mean here? Think about a clear blue sky. If a storm suddenly appears, it's unexpected. That is exactly where this idiom comes from. It means that something happens suddenly and without warning. So when Lisa says, the idea came out of the blue last week, she means that the idea for the party was unexpected and totally spontaneous. So let's talk about socializing and relationships with idioms. A little bit more here. The situation for this is you use this idiom when something happens suddenly without any warning. For example, she called me out of the blue after 5 years of no contact. Or the opportunity to travel to Japan came out of the blue. I wasn't even planning a trip. Next, we have caught me off guard. Let's look at the final part. Wow, that really caught me off guard. I didn't know you were such a party planner. So what does caught me off guard mean? This phrase comes from military and sports contexts. So if someone is off guard, they're unprepared for an attack or an unexpected move. So when Martha says, that really caught me off guard, she means that she was surprised because she didn't expect Lisa to be someone who plans parties. You use this idiom when something surprises you and you were not expecting it. So an example could be, his sudden resignation caught everyone off guard. Or I was caught off guard when she asked me to give a speech at the event. And this concludes today's lesson on idioms related to socializing and relationships. Wonderful work. Welcome to our next lesson on idioms. So why learn time and opportunity idioms? Well, time and opportunities are precious. In English, we use idioms to describe how quickly time passes, how to seize opportunities, and why acting fast can prevent bigger problems. So today, let's go through some essential idioms that will help you express yourself more naturally in conversations about time and opportunity. I can't believe the project is due next week. Time flies. I know, but if we focus, we'll get it done in the nick of time. You're right, we should make hay while the sun shines and finish as much as we can today. Exactly. A stitch in time saves 9. Let's fix small issues now before they become big problems. Good point. And if we don't finish on time, well, better late than never. All right, so let's break it down and understanding these idioms. Time flies. Let's replay the conversation. I can't believe the project is due next week. Time flies. So what does time flies mean here? This phrase actually comes from the Latin saying tempus fugit, which means time moves fast like a flying bird. We often say this when we feel like time has passed quickly. And in the conversation, when Jacqueline says, time flies, she means the deadline has arrived faster than expected. You can use this idiom when talking about how quickly time passes, especially when you're busy or having fun. Example would be, I can't believe it's already December. Time flies. Or time flies when you're enjoying your vacation. Next is in the nick of time. Let's go back to the conversation. I know, but if we focus, we'll get it done in the nick of time. So what does in the nick of time mean here? This idiom comes from the idea of marking precise moments in time. If something happens right before it's too late, it happens in the nick of time. When Emma says, we'll get it done in the nick of time, she means they will complete the project just before the deadline. So you would use this idiom when something happens at the last possible moment, just before a deadline or just before something is due. Example would be, we caught the train in the nick of time. It left seconds after we got on. Or he submitted his application in the nick of time just before the deadline. Next is make hay while the sun shines. Now let's look at the next part. You're right. We should make hay while the sun shines and finish as much as we can today. So what does make hay while the sun shines mean here? Well, the origin is farmers need to have sunlight to dry hay properly. If they wait too long, bad weather can ruin it. So this idiom means taking advantage of an opportunity while it lasts. So when Jacqueline says, we should make hay while the sun shines, she means they should take advantage of their time and energy now to get the work done. You use this idiom when talking about making the most of a good situation before it's too late. So an example could be, it's the holiday season. Let's make hay while the sun shines and boost sales. Or, she's in a great mood right now, so ask for permission while you can. Make hay while the sun shines. This next one I really like. A stitch in time saves 9. Let's go back to the conversation. Exactly. A stitch in time saves 9. Let's fix small issues now before they become big problems. So what does a stitch in time saves 9 mean here? This idiom comes from sewing. If you fix a small tear with one stitch, you prevent the need for 9 more stitches later when it gets worse. So when Emma says, a stitch in time saves 9, she means it's better to fix small problems now before they become bigger and harder to handle later. You can use this idiom when talking about fixing a problem early on to avoid having bigger issues or problems later on. Some examples could be, if you fix the leak now, you'll avoid major water damage later. A stitch in time saves 9. Or, regular car maintenance prevents expensive repairs in the future. A stitch in time saves 9. Next is, better late than never. Now let's take a look at the final part. Good point. And if we don't finish on time, well, better late than never. So what does better late than never mean here? This phrase simply means it's better to do something late than to never do it at all. So when Jacqueline says better late than never, she means that even if they missed the deadline, at least they still completed the work. You would use this idiom when talking about doing something late, but still appreciating that it got done at all. So an example could be, she finally apologized for her mistake. Better late than never. Or, I just started learning Spanish at 40, but better late than never. And this concludes today's lesson on idioms related to time and opportunity. Well done. I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to our lecture 6 about idioms. Why learn perception and opinion idioms? Well, in conversations, we often express what we think, how we see things, and how we make decisions. So instead of using plain words, idioms make our thoughts sound more engaging and expressive. Today, we'll go through some common idioms about perceptions and opinions that will help you sound more natural in everyday conversations. Where should we eat tonight? I'm thinking of that new Italian place. It's a no-brainer. Their food is amazing. All right, but you seem a little distracted. A penny for your thoughts? Oh, I just overheard my boss talking earlier. I had to read between the lines, but I think there are going to be some big changes at work. Well, don't judge a book by its cover. Maybe the changes will be good. I hope so. Oh, and speaking of work, Sarah let the cat out of the bag about the surprise party for Tom. All right, you know what time it is. Let's break it down, understanding the idioms. So first of all, it's a no-brainer. Let's replay the conversation. Where should we eat tonight? I'm thinking of that new Italian place. It's a no-brainer. Their food is amazing. So what does it's a no-brainer mean here? A no-brainer means a decision that requires no thinking at all. It's so obvious that you don't even need to use your brain. So when Emma says, it's a no-brainer, she means that choosing the Italian restaurant is an easy and obvious decision. You use this idiom when something is so clear and simple that it doesn't require much thought. An example would be, should I take the promotion with a higher salary? It's a no-brainer. Or wearing sunscreen at the beach? That's a no-brainer. A penny for your thoughts. Let's go back to the conversation. All right, but you seem a little distracted. A penny for your thoughts? So what does a penny for your thoughts mean here? This phrase actually comes from Old English times when a penny had more value. People would offer a penny to hear someone's thoughts, meaning they were curious about what the other person was thinking. So when Jacqueline says a penny for your thoughts, she's asking Emma, what is she thinking about? Because she looks distracted. So you use this idiom when someone seems lost in thought and you want to know what's on their mind. So an example could be, you've been quiet for a while. A penny for your thoughts? Or, you look deep in thought. Penny for your thoughts? Next is read between the lines. Let's look at the next part of the conversation. I just overheard my boss talking earlier. I had to read between the lines, but I think there are going to be some big changes at work. So what does read between the lines mean here? In old coded messages, secret information was actually sometimes hidden between the actual lines of text. If you read between the lines, you look for hidden meanings or indirect messages. So when Emma says, I had to read between the lines, she means her boss didn't say the changes directly, but she could understand the hidden meaning behind the words. So you use this idiom when someone isn't being direct about something and you have to figure out what they really mean. An example could be, he didn't say he was unhappy, but if you read between the lines, you could tell he was frustrated. Or, the letter didn't say we were rejected, but reading between the lines, I think we did not get the deal. Next we have, don't judge a book by its cover. Let's go back to the conversation. Well, don't judge a book by its cover. Maybe the changes will be good. So what does don't judge a book by its cover mean? This idiom comes from books. Just because a book has a boring cover doesn't mean the story inside isn't amazing. The idea is that you shouldn't judge things or people based only on appearances. So when Jacqueline says, don't judge a book by its cover, she means Emma shouldn't assume that the work changes will be bad just because they seem uncertain. So you could use this idiom when reminding someone not to make assumptions based on only looks or first impressions. So an example could be, she might seem shy, but don't judge a book by its cover. She's actually really funny. Or that restaurant looks small, but don't judge a book by its cover. The food is fantastic. And then we have, let the cat out of the bag. Let's look at the final part of the conversation. I hope so. Oh, and speaking of work, Sarah let the cat out of the bag about the surprise party for Tom. So what does let the cat out of the bag mean here? Well, the origin of this idiom, in old markets, dishonest sellers would sometimes put a cat in a bag instead of a piglet and sell it. When the buyer opened the bag and the cat jumped out, the secret was revealed. When Emma says, Sarah let the cat out of the bag, she means Sarah accidentally revealed the secret about Tom's surprise party. You use this idiom when someone accidentally reveals a secret. So for example, I was trying to keep my vacation a surprise, but my friend let the cat out of the bag. Or, he let the cat out of the bag about the company merger before the official announcement. Thank you so much for joining me. This concludes our lesson about idioms related to perceptions and opinions. Wonderful work. Hello and welcome to Lecture 7 on idioms. Why learn money and finance idioms? Well, money plays a big role in our lives, and we often use idioms to talk about saving, spending, and managing finances. Instead of saying something in a basic way, Idioms make financial conversations more engaging and expressive. So today, let's go through some common money and finance idioms that will help you sound more natural in discussions about budgeting, expenses, and financial decisions. I'm trying to save money this month. You know what they say, a penny saved is a penny earned. That's smart. I really wanted to buy the new iPhone, but it costs an arm and a leg. I know, and last night my friends went to that fancy restaurant, and guess who had to foot the bill? Ouch, that must have been expensive. I'm barely making ends meet as it is. Same here. And have you seen the rent prices lately? You have to pay through the nose just to get a small apartment. All right, you know what time it is. Let's break it down, understanding these idioms. A penny saved is a penny earned. Let's replay the conversation. I'm trying to save money this month. You know what they say, a penny saved is a penny earned. So what does a penny saved is a penny earned mean here? This phrase is often attributed to Benjamin Franklin. It means that saving money is just as valuable as earning it because it helps build financial security. So when Emma says a penny saved is a penny earned, she means that by saving money instead of spending it, she is effectively increasing her wealth. You use this idiom when talking about the importance of saving money. Let's go through a couple examples. I decided to cook at home instead of eating out. A penny saved is a penny earned. You don't need that expensive coffee every day. A penny saved is a penny earned. Now let's go to costs an arm and a leg, or cost an arm and a leg. Let's go back to the conversation. That's smart. I really wanted to buy the new iPhone, but it costs an arm and a leg. So what does cost an arm and a leg mean here? This phrase likely comes from historical wartime injuries. Losing an arm or a leg was a very high price to pay. So today it means simply something is extremely expensive. When Jacqueline says it costs an arm and a leg, she means the new iPhone is very expensive. You use this idiom when something costs a lot of money. Like, for example, that designer handbag costs an arm and a leg. I can't afford it. Or college tuition these days costs an arm and a leg. Now let's look at the next part. I know, and last night my friends went to that fancy restaurant, and guess who had to foot the bill? So what does foot the bill mean here? Well, the word foot refers to totaling up the final amount on a bill. When you foot the bill, you pay for everything. So when Emma says, guess who had to foot the bill? She means that she had to pay for the entire restaurant bill. You would use this idiom when someone is responsible for paying the entirety of a large bill. For example, my dad offered to foot the bill for my college tuition. Or at the company dinner, our boss footed the bill for everyone. And then we have make ends meet. Let's go back to our conversation. Ouch, that must have been expensive. I'm barely making ends meet as it is. So what does make ends meet mean here? This phrase comes from balancing a budget. If your income and expenses don't meet at the end of the month, you're in trouble. If you barely make ends meet, it means you're struggling to cover your expenses. So when Jake says, I'm barely making ends meet, he means he's struggling to manage his finances and to cover his expenses. So you could use this idiom when someone is financially struggling to pay for their needs. An example could be, with rising rent prices, it's hard to make ends meet on a small salary. Or, she works 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Pay through the nose. Now let's look at the final part. Same here. And have you seen the rent prices lately? You have to pay through the nose just to get a small apartment. So what does pay through the nose actually mean? This idiom may come from old Viking tax practices where people were forced to pay heavy fines. It means paying an unreasonably high price for something. When Emma says, "You have to pay through the nose just to get a small apartment," she means the rent prices are extremely high. So a situation in which you could use an idiom like this would be when someone has to pay much more than is expected for something. For example, "We had to pay through the nose for last-minute flights." Or, "Tourists always pay through the nose for food in the city." Wonderful work today on idioms related to money and finance, and I'll see you in the next one. Welcome back for Lesson 8 on idioms. Why learn health and well-being idioms? Well, health is one of the most common topics in everyday conversations. Instead of saying, "I feel sick" or "I'm recovering," idioms make the conversation more natural and expressive. So today we'll go through some common idioms related to health and well-being that will help you talk about sickness, recovery, and overall health in an engaging way. "Hey Jacqueline, you weren't at work yesterday. Everything okay?" "Not really. I was feeling under the weather, so I stayed home to rest." "Oh no, I hope you're on the mend now." "Yeah, I'm getting there. My fever went down and I should be back on my feet soon." "That's good to hear. You're usually in the pink, so it's strange to see you sick." "I know, but last night I took a turn for the worse and I thought I'd never recover." "You know what time it is? Let's break it down." So, under the weather. Let's replay the conversation. "Hey Jacqueline, you weren't at work yesterday. Everything okay?" "Not really. I was feeling under the weather, so I stayed home to rest." So what does under the weather mean here? Well, this idiom comes from old sailing terms, actually. When sailors felt sick, they were sent below deck under the weather to recover. Today, it simply means feeling ill or unwell. So when Jacqueline says, "I was feeling under the weather," she means she was not feeling well, likely sick or exhausted. You can use this idiom when you feel slightly sick but not seriously ill. Example, "I won't be going to the party tonight. I'm feeling a bit under the weather." Or, "She was under the weather, so she took a sick day." Next is on the mend. Let's go back to the conversation. "Oh no, I hope you're on the mend now." So what does on the mend mean here? The word mend means to fix or repair something. If someone is on the mend, it means they are recovering from an illness or an injury. When Emma says, "I hope you're on the mend," she's hoping that Jake is recovering and feeling better. You use this idiom when someone is getting better after being sick or injured. For example, "After a week of rest, she's finally on the mend." Or, "I had the flu last week, but I'm on the mend now." Back on your feet. Now let's take a look at the next part. "Yeah, I'm getting there. My fever went down and I should be back on my feet soon." So what does "back on your feet" mean here? This phrase refers to standing up after being down, whether from sickness, injury, or financial difficulties. So when Jacqueline says, "I should be back on my feet soon," she means she will fully recover and return to her normal routine soon. You can use this idiom when someone is recovering from an illness or a difficult situation. For example, after his surgery, it took him a month to get back on his feet. Or the company struggled during the pandemic, but they are back on their feet. In the pink. Let's go back to the conversation again. "That's good to hear. You're usually in the pink, so it's strange to see you sick." So what does "in the pink" mean here? Well, the color pink has been associated for a long time with good health and vitality, so being in the pink means you're in excellent health. So when Emma says you're usually in the pink, she means Jacqueline is normally very healthy, so it's very unusual for her to be sick. You can use this idiom when talking about being in great physical health. For example, Grandma is 85, but still in the pink. She walks every morning. After a few weeks of eating healthy and exercising, I'm feeling in the pink. Next, we have take a turn for the worse. Let's look at the final part of our conversation. I know, but last night I took a turn for the worse and I thought I'd never recover. So what does take a turn for the worse mean here? Well, the origin of this phrase, take a turn, means to change direction. If something takes a turn for the worse, it means it suddenly becomes worse. So when Jacqueline says, I took a turn for the worse, she means her condition got worse before improving again. You can use this idiom when someone's health or situation suddenly gets worse. For example, he seemed fine this morning, but his condition took a turn for the worse in the afternoon. Or the economy took a turn for the worse after the financial crisis. Remember, your health and well-being are super important, so thank you for joining us on this lesson with idioms related to your health and well-being. Excellent work today. Hello and welcome to Lesson 9. Why should we learn about luck and chance idioms? Well, life is full of surprises. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, and sometimes we take chances. In English, we use idioms to talk about luck, fortune, and taking risks. So today, let's go through some common idioms about luck and chance that will help you sound more natural in everyday conversations. I was so close to winning that round. Better luck next time. You almost had it. Yeah, but look at that kid over there. He just won the jackpot on his first try. Must be beginner's luck. Maybe. But I believe you have to make your own luck. Keep practicing and you'll win soon. True. I guess fortune favors the bold. I'll go for the big prize next time. Go for it. Fingers crossed that you win. All right, so let's break it down, understanding these idioms. Better luck next time. Let's replay the conversation. I was so close to winning that round. Better luck next time. You almost had it. Yeah, but so what does better luck next time mean here? Well, this phrase is simply a way of wishing someone good luck in the future after they fail at something. It's a way of encouraging them to try again. When Emma says, better luck next time, she means Jacqueline didn't win this time, but she hopes she will next time. You can use this idiom when someone loses a game, fails a test, or just doesn't succeed at something, and you want to encourage them. An example could be, I didn't get the job, but oh well, better luck next time. Or, she didn't win the tennis match, but I told her better luck next time. Let's go back to the conversation. Beginner's luck. Yeah, but look at that kid over there. He just won the jackpot on his first try. Must be beginner's luck. So what does beginner's luck mean here? Well, this idiom comes from the idea that people who are new at something often succeed unexpectedly. It's a way of saying they got lucky because they're a beginner. So when Jacqueline says, must be beginner's luck, she means the kid that won the jackpot won because he was lucky on his first try, not because of his skill. So you can use this idiom when someone who is new at something is succeeding surprisingly well. An example could be, it was my first time playing poker and I won. Must be beginner's luck. Or, she beat me at chess even though she had never played before. Beginner's luck. Next we have make your own luck. Now let's look at the next part. Maybe, but I believe you have to make your own luck. Keep practicing and you'll win soon. So what does make your own luck mean here? This phrase means that success isn't just about luck. You create opportunities by working hard, taking risks, and making good choices. So when Emma says you have to make your own luck, she means Jacqueline will win if she keeps practicing and improving her skills rather than just relying on luck. So you can use this idiom when encouraging someone to take action instead of waiting for luck to happen. For example, she didn't just wait for an opportunity, she made her own luck by networking and applying for jobs. Or, successful people don't rely on luck alone, they make their own luck by working hard. Our next idiom we have is fortune favors the bold. Let's return to our conversation once again. True, I guess fortune favors the bold. I'll go for the big prize next time. Yep. So what does fortune favors the bold mean here? This phrase dates back to ancient times, meaning those who take risks are more likely to be rewarded. Because if you don't try, you won't succeed. When Jacqueline says fortune favors the bold, she means if she takes a bigger risk by aiming for a big prize, she has a better chance of winning. So you could use this idiom when encouraging someone to take risks in order to achieve success. For example, she moved to a new country to start her business. Fortune favors the bold. Or, I'm thinking of starting my own company. Well, fortune favors the bold. Fingers crossed. Now let's look at the final part. Go for it. Fingers crossed that you win. So what does fingers crossed mean here? This phrase actually comes from an old superstition. Crossing your fingers was believed to bring good luck and protection from bad luck. Today, it simply means hoping for the best outcome. So in conversation, when Emma says fingers crossed that you win, she means she's hoping for Jacqueline to be lucky and to succeed. In your case, you can use this idiom when you're hoping for something good to happen. Like, I have a big exam tomorrow, fingers crossed that I pass. Or, we applied for a loan, fingers crossed we get approved. Beautiful work today on idioms related to luck and chance. I'll see you in our next lesson. Welcome to Lesson 10. Why learn decision-making and judgment idioms? Well, every single day we make big and small decisions, and sometimes we need to think carefully, and other times we have to decide quickly. Idioms help us express how we make decisions and evaluate situations in a more engaging way. Today, let's go through some common idioms related to decision-making and judgment that will help you sound more natural in conversations. I got 2 job offers, but I'm not sure which one to take. That's a big decision. Maybe you should sleep on it before deciding. Yeah, I need more time, but my recruiter said the ball is in my court now. That's true. Just don't make a snap decision. You should weigh the pros and cons. Good advice. But I also feel like I should go with my gut on this one. That makes sense. And if the job doesn't work out, you can always cut your losses and move on. All right, so let's break it down. Let's understand these idioms. First, sleep on it. Let's replay our conversation. I got 2 job offers, but I'm not sure which one to take. That's a big decision. Maybe you should sleep on it before deciding. So what does sleep on it mean here? This idiom comes from the idea that thinking about something overnight can actually help you make a better decision because your brain processes information while you sleep. So waiting a day can lead to a clearer choice. When Jacqueline says, maybe you should sleep on it, she means Emma should take some time before she makes her final decision. And you could use this idiom when you need to take more time to think about something before you make your decision. For example, I'm not sure if I should buy this car. I'll sleep on it and decide tomorrow. Or she didn't accept the job offer right away. She decided to sleep on it. Then the ball is in your court. Let's go back to our conversation. Yeah, I need more time, but my recruiter said the ball is in my court now. So what does the ball is in your court mean here? This idiom comes from sports, especially tennis and basketball. When the ball is in your court, it's your turn to take action. When Emma says, the ball is in my court now, she means it's her responsibility to make a decision about the job offers. So you could use this idiom when someone has to take action or make a decision. For example, we sent them the contract, now the ball is in their court. Or I've given you all the information, you have to decide. The ball is in your court. Next, we have make a snap decision. Let's take a look at the next part of our conversation. That's true, just don't make a snap decision. You should weigh the pros and cons. So what does it mean to make a snap decision? Well, the word snap means something quick and sudden. So a snap decision is one that's made without much thought or foresight or careful consideration. So when Jacqueline says, just don't make a snap decision, she means Emma shouldn't rush into deciding something without fully thinking it through. You can use this idiom when someone makes a very quick decision about something without fully considering all of the consequences of their decision. An example would be, I made a snap decision to buy the expensive phone and now I regret it. Or, don't make a snap decision about moving, think about it carefully. Next, we have go with your gut. Let's go back to our conversation again. Good advice, but I also feel like I should go with my gut on this one. So what does go with your gut mean here? Well, this idiom is based on the idea that our instincts, gut feelings, can sometimes guide us better than overthinking something. So when Emma says, I should go with my gut, she means she wants to trust her instincts instead of overanalyzing the decision. So a situation when you could use this idiom is when someone makes a decision based on their intuition or their feelings, gut feelings, rather than logic. For example, I wasn't sure about the deal, but I went with my gut and it worked out. Or sometimes you just have to go with your gut and trust your instincts. Next, we have cut your losses. Let's take a look at the final part of our combo. That makes sense. And if the job doesn't work out, you can always cut your losses and move on. So what does it mean here to cut your losses? Well, this phrase comes from business and gambling. If an investment or bet is failing, it's sometimes better to accept a small loss and then move on instead of losing even more and having bigger losses. So when Jacqueline says, cut your losses and move on, she means if the job Emma chooses turns out to be a bad choice, she can just leave it instead of suffering further. You could use this idiom when someone should stop doing something that is not worth continuing. For example, I kept investing in that failing business, but I finally decided to cut my losses. Or he realized his relationship wasn't working, so he cut his losses and moved on. That concludes our lesson on idioms related to decision-making and judgment. Thank you so much.